Martin Underwood. It's been a while since I've seen you. The last time I saw you was yesterday when you were being inducted into the TCDLA Hall of Fame, and it was a wonderful ceremony. How did that make you feel?
Well, of course, prouder than I've ever felt about anything in my whole life. Especially being surrounded by the people that you've known through the years and worked with them. And it couldn't have been better. Right? I was so humbled that I almost couldn't get up there and talk.
And Jane, I want to ask you, because you're the heart and soul of this operation. So how did it make you feel to watch your husband up there?
I was very proud because I'm used to, I'm surrounded at these places at the galleries of TCDLA by such, marvelous people like Goldstein and Mark Stevens and Stan, not Weinberg, that's another guy. But anyway, Stan, and I can go on and on with a list of names, and of course all the previous Hall of Famers, and it was just incredible.
Well, yeah, Martin's one of them now.
Yeah.
Whether he wants to be or not. So what we'll do a little bit, Martin, I want you to kind of go through your history from I know you were born in Ballinger.
Actually, I was born in Lubbock, but I had the good sense to leave before I was 1 year old, and lived a bunch of different places, but Ballinger was where I went to school. And so Ballinger's over between San Angelo and Abilene, kind of farming country. I went to school there. I played football for the Ballinger Bearcats, and I didn't get enough concussions that way, so I boxed in the Golden Gloves and never won a fight. And finally, after being knocked out a good many times, I thought, this could possibly hurt my brain, and so I stopped doing that. But nobody in those days, everybody thought it was glorious to get a concussion in a football game, in those days.
It was a good choice early on. I think nowadays we realize it even more. Tell me about your parents a little bit.
Well, my parents, but my father was a highway patrolman, and he was in the famous DPS class of 1937, and that came about because they had disbanded the highway patrol earlier because a governor had been using them for his own purposes, and then when they cranked them up again, it was a class of 37, and my father was in it. And he also went to law school at the same time that he was a highway patrolman, and he got his law license and practiced there in Ballinger as a small town attorney. But one thing he wouldn't do at all is take a criminal case.
He didn't take criminal
Did not take criminal case.
Would be a highway patrolman, but didn't take a criminal case. And so you went to high school in Ballinger, right? And then where did you go to college?
Went to UT in Austin. That was in '58. Lived in the old University Y there, 24th and Guadalupe, which was the center of liberal movements. And I wasn't liberal at all at the time. I was just there because it was cheap.
Yeah.
But I was in a thing they called Plan 2, which was a kind of a plan for people who didn't need to make money. They could spend 4 years broadening themselves with art and history and classical studies and all. I didn't know that, but anyway, that's what I did. It was a very good program. It just didn't prepare you to make any money.
So while you're in that Plan 2 program, did you have any idea that someday you were going to be a lawyer?
I had a pretty good idea that I would never be a lawyer if I could help it. I had a wife and 2 kids, and we starved to death. There were no student loans in those days, and you just did the best you could. And so actually, when I got to the graduating point from undergraduate, well, I took a job with the federal government, with the Social Security Administration. I spent 7 years at it. I did not like it very much because there was no room for any originality or any thinking outside the box. But it was significant because I was the sort of guy, I was single by then, and I was the sort of guy that would go anywhere and do anything for another increase in grade. So I was kind of a hot shot that went around the country. And I was in Philadelphia, and they told me, said, you know where the worst Social Security office in the United States is? I said, no, the Eagle Pass, Texas. We're sending you down there to see if you can do something about, you know, improving that office. So I went down there and I had to find a place to stay. I rented a room from a woman who happened to be my wife's aunt.
So this is how you and Jane met.
That's
in
how
case
it
no
all
one
got
knows.
started. You know, she found reasons to come and visit her aunt, and pretty soon we were going over to Piedras Negras. And so 3 or 4 months went by, and they said, okay, enough playing around at the border. We're sending you to Baltimore.
Now, I gotta stop you a minute, because I think Jane wants to straighten the record out
Well,
just a little bit.
He stretched it quite a lot, so I have to bring it to the middle. But my aunt, he worked with one aunt, and my other aunt took care of his daughter and then asked him to move in too. But anyway, they kept wanting me to meet him, and I said, no, I'm not interested. And then when they told me, okay, we're gonna introduce him to so-and-so, I said, wait a minute, let me meet him first. And I did, and 3
you
months
approved
later,
at
we
the
married.
time?
Yeah, yeah, I liked what I saw.
Yeah, it's a pretty good story. So from there, you came from Philadelphia and you went where?
Well, they sent us to Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, there was a little crisis there. We'd only known each other that few months. And I said, why don't you go to Baltimore with me? And she said, not without a marriage license. And so that's the way that happened. And then we went to Baltimore, and we both actually hated it. We couldn't take the cold weather. And she called the Mexican consuls. They just talked some Spanish to me, you know. It made me feel, I don't care what you talk about, I just want to talk Spanish. And so that's the way it went. And after a while, we just couldn't take it anymore. We went back to Dallas, lived there a while. One day just got fed up and just walked out, never went back to the federal building. Not because I was mad, but because I was just, I could look around, I couldn't see anybody that I wanted to be like, and I knew I would be if I stayed.
So is that when you decided to look into law school?
Yeah, we just kind of kicked around for a while, and I had 1 year of law school earlier.
Okay.
I said, well, we could always just go back to Austin and do those other 2 years. And it happened to be the wonderful period of Austin when Waylon and Willie were at the Armadillo. And, you know, Austin was Austin. It was really nice, the hippies and so forth. And so
Well, tell me when you bought that Volkswagen bus. I've got to interject and put that in there somewhere.
we bought it when we were in Dallas in the 70s.
When Dixie was born and we had to travel a 5-state area for
Yeah,
Social
yeah,
Security.
we traveled a 5-state area. We took our kids with us. By the way, next month we celebrate our 50th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Through all of this, you know, and we have to overpopulate the planet too.
Okay. So 2 kids?
Well,
Two
together
daughters.
we have 1 kid,
$2.
and she's like 50 years old.
Okay. So you're back in law school now in Austin,
Yeah.
and finished law school. What's the plan at that point?
Well, actually in there I was working for the student's attorney's office at UT with Frank Ivey.
Okay.
And, you know, all of a sudden, somewhere in there, about 75 or so, all the his yuppies and his Republicans and so forth, the computer people and all took over Austin, and we didn't like it anymore. Ann Richards, you know, she got beat. And so we didn't like Austin anymore, and the rich hippies ran for Santa Fe and places like that, and the poor ones ran for the Big Bend, Terlingua, and places like that.
That makes some sense, doesn't it?
And we were headed for Terlingua, and we, you know, it was a campmobile, and so we camped on an open field in a town called Comstock that I'd never heard of. And we woke up the next morning and we had camped on the rodeo grounds, and they were having a rodeo. So we stayed for the rodeo, then it rained, we got stuck, couldn't get out, stayed another night. And we looked across the field, and there was this old tumble down general store with the false front, it was made out of adobe and so forth, and it said for rent. So we said, well, hell, why don't we just stop here? So we went over to ask the lady, she had her arm on the for rent sign, and so we want to rent your place. And she said, she looked, and there was a hippie and a Mexican, and she said, it's not for rent. She said, it's for sale. And so we bought it, and that's how we got to Comstock, and we've been there going on 50 years now.
Now, is that the building that at one time was the post office building?
It was everything. It was the only building in town. It had the bar room, it had the barber shop, it was a general store. It was all like a little old shopping center from the 1900 era.
So here you are, a lawyer in Comstock, where there's just not a large population. At some point, you had to figure you need to expand to work. What did you do to start bringing in clients?
Well, I started taking some appointments. There's no courts in Comstock, but these were like in Del Rio and Ozona and places like that. But I wasn't too enthusiastic. But I went to a seminar at the TCDLA, and Sam Houston Clinton was there, and Marvin Teague, and Vince Perini, and Frank Maloney, and those guys, and they inspired me. I didn't really know much about criminal law or care. And then I heard Jerry Goldstein speak about the Fourth Amendment, and he set me on fire.
Yeah,
and
he
so,
can do that.
Yeah. So for a few years, Jerry and I were missionaries to West Texas with the Fourth Amendment in our hand, you know, there, and it was very exciting. And we made some case law that was good. Up until that time, it seemed like every county sheriff made his own laws, and most of them literally had never heard of the Fourth Amendment. Some of them had, but ignored it. But
I'm going to back up a little bit, I think, because there's one name I want to ask you about personally, and that's you. At some point, you developed an appreciation for Warren Burnett.
Absolutely. I had known of Warren Burnett. It was the period after we moved to Comstock, and I was still waiting for my diploma from law school to arrive. As you know, a period there after you pass the bar exam. And I heard that the great Warren Burnett was trying a case over in Sanderson, Texas, which is about 90 miles away. So I hitchhiked over there and got there just as Warren was starting a trial, and it was a workman's compensation trial. And I introduced myself, I told him who I was, and he said, well, hell, Martin, come be my counsel in this trial. And all of a sudden, I'm at the counsel table in a trial, and I've never even been at one before. But from that point on, Warren was my mentor, and I guess not that many people remember Warren, but there was never anybody better in the courtroom, better with jurors than Warren Burnett.
It's a nice thing to say. That's a nice thing to say.
He was rather eccentric too.
And who won that trial? That you
Oh,
said?
he won it, yeah,
He won it.
no doubt about it.
And where was that trial? You said Sanderson?
In Sanderson, Texas,
Okay. Sanderson brings up one other issue, and I think you were involved in a case in Sanderson called Meeks. which has set a standard in Texas for the use of roadblocks and traffic stops.
That's true.
Tell us a little bit about Meeks.
Okay, well, that was an appointed case, and the sheriff of Terrell County, which is Sanderson, he had more or less a habit that 2 or 3 times a year he'd just go out and blockade US 90 for a few days and stop every car and search every car, and he made a lot of money for the county. And he didn't know he was doing anything wrong. And so we got this case, and I had been Goldstein's lecture, you know, and learned something, and then I'm seeing this situation, and I called Goldstein and say, you know, this doesn't seem like it corresponds with what you told us about the Fourth Amendment. So I told him, and he and Ed Millett from Houston, they got in Jerry's mother's Cadillac, and they drove out here and they did that motion to suppress. And the district judge kept his record perfect. He denied it, as he had denied every motion to suppress that had ever been filed in this court. And so we preserved the error. And then there was a bright young man named Mark Stevens who was working for Jerry Goldstein, and he wrote this brilliant brief on appeal, and that was Meeks. And basically what Meeks said was, not only can you not blockade the highway, you just can't stop people and search them unless you got at least reasonable suspicion of probable cause. And that was Meeks. And it sounds funny now, but that stopped that practice out in West Texas, that broad wasteland between San Antonio and El Paso. The word got around to the sheriffs, if you do this, you're going to be embarrassed.
And every time it comes up again, Meeks gets cited and it gets shut down again. So it's still a good law in Texas.
It's good.
So that was 1985,
Of course.
more or less. And then not long after that, you did another case that had great impact.
And
1989.
That must be DeFreeze.
DeFreeze case.
Versus Texas. And can you believe, Sanderson is a town of about 1,500 people. But both of these landmark cases were in Sanderson, Texas. DeFreeze was a guy who had a long history of mental problems. He killed his wife with a knife outside Sanderson there because he thought she was trying to sell their baby. And, you know, he's crazy. He's a bad buck, really. But anyway, they prosecuted him, and at that time, Texas had a statute that said if anybody raises a mental health issue, the judge will appoint a mental health expert, and that will be everybody's expert. That'll be the judge's expert, defendant's expert, the prosecution's expert. We challenged that about that time. Ake versus Oklahoma had come down, or I believe it was before Ake versus Oklahoma, but it was stirring. And once again, Mark Stevens writes a brilliant brief, and the bottom line was, if you're indigent and you need an expert to present your defense effectively, you're going to get it at state expense, and it's your expert, not everybody's expert. No, we invalidated that statute, I think. And I guess DeFreeze is used in every county in Texas, you know.
Still the law.
Yeah.
Still the law.
It was a great blow for justice, I thought.
So now there's one more landmark case that we're going to at least pay homage to, and that would be Clay Henry and the case up in Lajitas that you were involved in. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that one.
It has no legal significance at all, but since it involved the castration of the mayor of Lajitas, that was enough to attract some attention, and then people learned that the mayor was Clay Henry, the beer-drinking goat. And Clay Henry had served well for several years. And my client was Jim Bob Hargrove, a nice guy who worked on a ranch, but he drank. And for some reason, Jim Bob went out there to Lajitas and By this time, by the way, some millionaire had bought trading post in Lajitas and made it into a resort. But anyway, Jim Bob went out there and he laid around drunk for at least a couple of weeks. And anybody who would listen to him, he would tell him that he knew about goats and that goats stunk, and if he were castrated, he would not stink nearly as bad. And then one morning, Clay Henry, the beer drinking goat, the mayor of Lajitas, was found castrated in his pen, and Jim Bob was nowhere to be found. And so, you know, it seemed like that was an era where you'd rather have a child molesting case than an animal mistreatment case. So they were going to send old Jim Bob to prison for 10 years with a deadly weapon behind him, if they could get him. And nothing would do, but we had to try it. And we did try it, and, you know, it attracted the media attention. People were calling us from Hong Kong and the Lesser Antilles and places like that wanting to know about the case. But anyway, the jury hung 10-2 for acquittal, and they never tried it again. That was that case. But there was an interesting thing that happened. After the trial, I heard one of the networks interviewing the foreman of the jury, and said, "Look, you guys heard all this evidence and so forth, and you couldn't reach a verdict. You hung up." Said, "Couldn't you agree on anything?" Well, I got to back up and tell you, during the trial, the prosecution put on a little old granny lady, very popular in Lajitas evidently, and she said a bunch of good things about the goat and a bunch of bad things about my client, Jim Bob. And so when they passed witness to me, my wife, who everybody knows is the brains of our operation, she said, "Leave it alone, leave it alone." I said, "No, they can't say things like that about Jim Bob, you know, without me retaliating." So I put on my most vicious mode of cross-examination, and the little old granny lady started crying. And, you know, that was terrible. And so anyway, the foreman of the jury said, "We all wanted to indict Martin Underwood. We were unanimous on that, but we found out we didn't have that power because I had mistreated the lady."
And that was like 2003, I think.
I guess,
When
yeah.
Lajitas had become that resort area that it was.
Yeah.
So, I thought I remembered one other thing you had told me was, and that there was an exhibit admitted at trial.
Yeah.
Exhibit 1, I believe it was. And tell me what Exhibit 1 was.
I guess it was the goat's testicles.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember.
They claimed that they found those testicles wherever Jim Bob was staying, along with the knife that was used to extract them. But I think they thought, the prosecution thought, that they had to have the testicles to make their case. They didn't. They could have made it easier with just testimony. But anyway, they claimed they found those testicles where Jim Bob was staying, and they claimed they preserved them till a year later or so to trial. But when they introduced the goat testicles, it was obvious that they were brand new, fresh ones. They hadn't been frozen or anything, and so that was a little bit of deceit that, you know, that hurt them with the jury, because the people on the jury knew about goat testicles.
And you would think they could have used DNA, you know?
Yeah, something like that.
So, let's move on a little bit, because I'd like you to talk a little bit about TCDLA, and you already have. It sounds like it's what got you here, and you've been a member of it for how long?
Since sometime in the 70s, right after it started. And you know, I saw Scrappy Holmes last night. He did the most wonderful thing. He went up to California, did some seminar, and he found out about these programs where you you try a mock case, you know, you have a week-long seminar and you learn to do the opening statement, and jury selection. He brought that to Texas, to the Huntsville Institute. And to me, that was the most wonderful educational thing that ever happened. And Scrappy deserves a whole lot of gratitude.
And he did that through TCDLA as well.
Yeah, it was TCDLA. But anyway, that really inspired me because the best lawyers in Texas would come down there and be instructors, and we had a courtroom, and it was a lot of fun too. But then the seminars through the years, you know, just wonderful. I remember Dennis Perini, one of the founders of this thing. He had a seminar about how to set and collect fees, and you know, practical stuff like that. A little aside on that, looks like I'm going to get the Warren Burnett Pro Bono Award next month with the bar meeting. And the reason
I heard that, and it's deserving.
Well, I'll address that. It seems that since I was so poor at setting fees and collecting fees, it looked like I was working pro bono. And I think that's why I get, you know, if you do that for 40 years, it really is pro bono, I guess. But anyway, TCDLA is wonderful. And it started out with one person, just one guy sitting in the office in Austin there. And you'd call there no matter what kind of problem it was, he took care of it. I'm thinking of John Boston, but I think there was somebody before him. But anyway, that's the way it was. And then I just grown, look at this Rusty Duncan thing. It's an incredible thing. So, you know, I can't say enough good about TCDLA.
Okay. There's one thing maybe I can ask Jane this question. I know that you were one of the few non-lawyer women who have been on the cover of TCDLA magazine, and either one of y'all can maybe address that just a little bit, because when I saw it, I was very proud to see you on that.
Well, there was the Friends of TCDLA.
The Friends of TCDLA.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
and you know, the significant others, spouses, whatever, we were there we had our own meetings, and I was elected that particular year. Yeah.
And I think they also recognized that you had been a co-counsel to Martin Underwood for about 30 years, or 25 years at the time.
Actually, my job was to hold him back when he got out of hand.
Say what not to do, yeah.
Just in closing, talk a little bit about how it turned out that Jane really became your co-counsel in life and in law.
Okay, yeah, it is kind of unusual to have a husband and wife team that runs nearly 50 years. It just, you know, it's not the usual style. But I want to tell you how it got started, and I got to tell you though that Chris Goldstein denies this story.
Okay,
but
for the record.
My good friend Chris Goldstein. But anyway, when we were going out there carrying the Fourth Amendment to West Texas, I felt like that I was a missionary, and we were. And Jerry and I would get so enthusiastic about going here and there and doing that. And this was before cell phones. And every now and then we forget to call home, and Jerry was worse about it than I was. And he finally, you know, he did it once too often, and when he got back to the King William, his wife was gone. So my story is, it was secondary sources, but I thought Jerry told me that he had to, home was in England. And I think he told me he had to fly that, what's that jet?
You said the Concorde.
The Concorde.
Probably
Had to fly that Concorde over there several times to apologize to her before she'd come back to the King William. Now, she denies that, and she had to acknowledge. But anyway, when I saw that, I said, I can't let this happen to me, you know. So when I got back to Comstock, I told the old lady, and you know, old lady is code words for beloved wife.
Yeah, okay.
I told her, I
Okay.
said, look, why don't we try these cases together, travel together? So, well, you need to get out of the house a little bit. And so she went for it, and she got out of the house rather regularly for the next 40-something years. I got to where I wouldn't go anywhere without her because she knew more procedure and she knew more evidence and she knew more about picking juries than anybody else in the courtroom, including the judge. So that's what we did.
And is it true, the rumor I've heard, that she's actually sat in second chair with you even on a capital murder case?
Oh, everyone, and that was another thing. They liked her. The judges liked her. The prosecutors liked her. The sheriffs liked her. You know, her approval rate, or what is it, popularity rate was something like 98%. Mine was about 20. And
You
so,
needed her.
yeah, they wanted her sitting next to me, so I didn't do.
It just rounds off your edges a little bit.
Yeah, I guess so. And so anyway, it was successful. It wasn't no time till she knew more about being a trial lawyer than any other trial lawyer in West Texas.
Anything else either one of you have to say about any of this stuff?
I'll tell you one thing, that the sheriffs have, everywhere we've been, the sheriffs do like Martin, the DAs do not. And we were talking about something one time, in fact, it was J.W. Johnson, and I said something about Martin, and I think I may have used the term, I want to kill him sometimes, or something like that, and he told me that they would defend, they would not charge me, with murder or whatever. And I said, well, what if I do it in some other county? He said, well, bring the body over here.
Yeah, be sure to get him in our jurisdiction.
J.W. Johnson, that name rings a bell.
Yes.
So, all right, is that it?
I believe we pretty well covered it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it, Mark. Congratulations on your induction into the TCDLA.
Thank you for doing
Thank
this
you.
for us.